Most videos on the Dragonfly jump straight into exercises, and yeah, we'll get to that too. But what I don't really see are people explaining how this thing actually loads you and why it can feel completely different depending on how you set it up. There's also a setup tweak later in the video that honestly surprised me.
Also, if you're wondering whether this feels good without understanding all of that, we'll get to that too.
The Dragonfly isn't a cable stack. It's a plate-loaded, rotating lever. That one detail explains almost everything people feel when they use it.
And if that sentence already feels like too much, don't worry. You don't need to know all of that to use it.
Especially when they're coming from a functional trainer and expecting constant tension right from the start. You're going to hear people say the Dragonfly feels light at the bottom and heavy near the top, and that's true, but that's not a flaw. It's just how a lever works.
First time I used it, I just thought, this gets harder as you go, which honestly makes sense once you're actually moving.
That feeling is baked into the mechanics of the system. With a lever, resistance depends on how far the weight is from the pivot horizontally. At the start of the rep, the plates are basically hanging under the pivot, so there isn't much torque. As the arm rotates upward, leverage changes, torque increases, and resistance ramps. You really feel the load once the arm gets closer to horizontal.
And once you know that, it stops feeling weird. It just feels different than cables.
So instead of guessing, we wanted to actually see what was happening. So with two 5-pound plates, one loaded on each weight horn, we're measuring at the exact same spot through one entire rep. The original outer horn position showed about 2.44 pounds at the start and went to 6.66 through the middle and just under 9.5 near the top. That's our reference point. Then, without changing the plates, the arm height, or where I'm pulling from, I move the outer horn up one slot. Now this numbers shift to roughly 4.25, 5.86, and 9.72. The top end barely changes, but the beginning and middle range do. Resistance shows up earlier and the curve smooths out. Same plates, same pull point, different feel because the leverage changed.
So this was the part where I realized it wasn't just in my head. You can actually see where it starts to feel heavier.
And just so nobody reads into much onto the exact numbers here, there's going to be a little bit of variance. When you're pulling on a scale, even a tiny change in how you're holding it will move the number around. I tried to be as consistent as I could, same spot, same plates, same setup, but I'm not rigging up some elaborate test bench. The point isn't that this is perfectly scientific, it's just to show the trend in weight.
Translation: don't pause the video and argue about decimals.
This is never going to feel like a true cable stack.
Which is totally fine. It's not trying to be that.
With cables crossed in opposite hands, you're under tension just holding the handles. So you're never going to fully replicate that with a mechanical system like this. Fringe, Bells of Steel, Mikolo, Revolt, it doesn't matter which one you're using. And you can add bands if you want, but bands don't bring tension in earlier. They stack at the top of the rep. That's the top end bias, not constant tension. So it's something you use intentionally, not to fix the bottom load.
I tried bands once and immediately went, okay, that's a lot at the top.
So that's really the thing with a system like this. There's no single perfect setup.
But once you find your setup, it stops feeling fiddly.
What you do have, though, is control. And the 4 weight horns give you a lot of it. So this is where people get confused. So it's worth being really clear. If you put 10 pounds on each horn on each arm, that does not mean you're lifting 20 pounds per arm. It's still just 10 pounds per arm.
This is the part I kept getting wrong at first.
So unless the weight is acting through the same horn and the same leverage point, it doesn't add linearly. So spreading weight across the horns doesn't double the load. It changes how that load behaves through the arc. Leverage is constantly changing as the arm moves. So where the weight sits matters as much as how much weight you use. So if you actually want more weight load per arm, you don't split plates around. You add more weight to the horns.
That made way more sense once you explained it.
Distribution shapes the feel. Total plates raise the ceiling. So personally, I like even weight across the horns with the outer horn in the upper position. It brings the resistance in earlier, keeps things balanced, and still lets the load ramp naturally through the rep. We could show a bunch of wild exercises here,
But we're not doing circus workouts in our living room.
but most of those look cool once and never get repeated. So we're just gonna show what we actually use and what actually makes sense with this resistance curve. The laterals feel really good on this, rear delts show up great too. Chest flies can work as long as you understand what the curve is doing. And with the tweak we'll show you in a minute, front raises end up working really well too.
Front raises were the one that surprised me the most, actually.
If you've stuck with us this far, this is the part that actually surprised me because none of this was planned. I had these Mutant Metals cable nubs sitting around that I wasn't using, and honestly, I was about to throw them up on eBay. I noticed the eye bolt and thought, and that's where this started. So the Dragonfly handle takes an M10 bolt. I don't know the thread pitch. I just know this fits. Once you remove the ball from the nub, it threads straight in without even having to force anything.
This was the moment I went, oh, that's why this felt short before.
So that gives you about 5 inches of extension from the eye bolt to the Dragonfly arm, to roughly 3 inches of actual knurled grip. And I don't think there's anyone out there who wouldn't appreciate an extra 3 inches where it matters.
Nobody's mad about that.
When we talk about grip feel here, we're really talking about diameter. The Dragonfly arm is about 30 millimeters. The nub is closer to 35. And on paper, that sounds noticeable, but in use, you barely think about it. You're mainly holding the nub, so it feels just like a handle over the arm. And honestly, it feels like these were supposed to be here.
It doesn't feel thicker in a weird way. It just feels finished.
So the extension feels good on everything, but front delt raises are where it really shines.
Yeah, this is where it went from this works to I actually like this.
They were doable before, but the handles were just a little short. This gives you the space and cleans the movement up. Rear delt flies actually feel better too. You're not crowded or pulling into the rack. So the eyeball also gives you a second attachment point if you want to run bands. Just remember bands stack tension at the top. So that's an option, not a requirement.
Optional being the key word.
So fit and finish is good, not perfect. The powder coat is a little rough in spots. The handles are compact by design, and the attachment is clearly built around metric racks.
It's not the prettiest thing Fringe makes, but it's the one we mess with the most.
So on my Rogue stainless uprights, I can wiggle it on, but on my Bells of Steel uprights, it took a rubber mallet. Now we're not talking Norse god Thor hammer, just some solid little love taps to get the things lined up. So zooming out, we think there are 2 attachments that really stand out in this category right now. The Dragonfly and the Bells of Steel Boulder Shoulder.
They feel like the first versions that actually make sense.
So we're not reviewing the Bells of Steel here, just talking about where the category has landed. The Dragonfly isn't the most refined attachment Fringe makes, but it's versatile. It lets you manipulate the strength curve, and once you understand how it works, it's a straight up workhorse.
And once it's dialed, it earns its spot.
If the Dragonfly makes sense for your setup and you're thinking about picking one up, we've got our Fringe Sport affiliate link down in the description.
It helps us keep doing this kind of deep dive, which we really appreciate.
It's not going to cost you anything extra. It just helps support the channel, and we really appreciate it. So if you know what this is and what it isn't, the Dragonfly makes a lot of sense in a home gym. Control beats perfection here.
Especially in a home gym.